And we're well into the festive season, and many, if they can, will be out shopping. But this year we are seeing South African consumers cut back on non-essentials, demanding more from retailers. Well, to chat a bit about the consumer trends we're now seeing this season, we have in studio Mr. Thami Bolani. He's the chairperson of the National Consumer Forum. Good afternoon, Mr. Bolani, and thank you for your time on the SABC News Desk. Always a pleasure to chat to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bolani, what kind of consumer sentiments are we seeing emerging this season? Taking into consideration, we've had some very sluggish economic growth, forcing many to curb discretionary spending on non-essential items or luxury goods for that matter.
What we are seeing is that a lot of consumers who can afford it are traveling. A few weeks ago, I was told, for instance, that accommodation was no longer available in major tourist places like Durban and Cape Town. So consumers are still spending. And I think that the correct statistics about how consumers are behaving during this period will only get those statistics after the festive season. I think it's still too early to speculate whether consumers are spending more than last year or spending less. I'm not getting a true sense of what is happening.
All right, so South Africans still spending on travel and holidays. They're not cutting back their Thami.
Bookings were full 4 weeks ago.
It's a clear indication.
That means people are spending.
But what are they then cutting back on? What are some of the most resilient items? One survey I did look at says they're still very keen on essentials, of course, like groceries, education, energy bills.
Yes, sure. Well, what I've seen is that people are cutting down on gifts, right? They're giving less. They're giving gifts that don't cost more like before. People are being given gift cards. So people are spending less on gifts. But I'm seeing people, like consumers in developed countries, starting to spend more on things like your traveling, like your accommodation, things that give more value to a consumer who can afford it.
Oh, when it comes to gifts, what can I expect in my Christmas stocking this year? What are the most popular gifting options coming through? For the last 4 years, we saw cash at the top of the list. And that's still there, so it's a clear indication that consumers are feeling the pinch.
Correct.
Yes.
For kids, they're still getting toys like before. And that's going to change for quite a long time to come. But for adults, I think it's better to give a gift card, because in most cases, you wouldn't know what I want to buy. So the best thing to do is to give me a gift card, and then I can go and buy the gift myself.
Yes. Thami, are we seeing a more price-conscious South African consumer emerge now? One that is more vociferous in terms of their expectations. That is, one would imagine that given the current economic climate, consumers are demanding more from retailers in the form of lower prices, better services, etc.
I'm not sure about being vociferous, as you put it. I have my doubts about that.
Why?
But consumers are much more conscious than before.
All right. And
they're beginning to look for better prices, for better quality when they go to shops, when they go buying. But I don't see this vociferousness you're talking about. Because South African consumers are still very, very timid, in my opinion. And we used to say that before consumer is the king. I don't see that happening in our country anymore, even though we've got the National Consumer Protection Act and the National Consumer Commission. Something is just not
Why is it that? Why is that, Thami? Is it just that consumers are not making use of the platforms that are there?
Lack of access to information. We don't do enough consumer education. And we talk about these issues really always around the festive season. All the time when I'm invited to these programs, I always say we should be talking about these things starting in January.
Yes.
Not only in December, 5 days before Christmas.
Yes, so earlier this year we saw the South African FNB BR Consumer Confidence Index fall to a 14.5-year low. And people, of course, that followed on from there, they were less willing to make use of their credit facilities, like a credit card and so on. But is this kind of cutback in spending, is it gender or age specific?
I don't think we have those statistics. I've been to the NCR website. I don't think it provides that kind of information, whether it's gender sensitive or age sensitive. But what I know is that about 50% of South Africa's population has got adverse listings on the credit bureau. And a lot of people cannot access credit because they simply cannot afford it.
All right.
Not because it's a conscious decision on the part of the consumer.
Thank you, Mr. Thami Bolani, joining us from the National Consumer Forum, which he heads. Thank you so much for your time on the SABC News Desk.